Well, my friends, good morning. Another day of the Raven and Daemon / Urban Primitive retrospective, and I thought I'd just do another little video to introduce things because otherwise I just end up having to write too much, which is not bad. I don't mind doing it. It's kind of fun, but I do want to do a bit of an intro. So what? Last night, the last thing was the ritual ceremony in the temple. Now, that temple, holy shit, blew my mind. I was used to doing little Wicca ceremonies, more kind of, I don't know, not in a derogatory sense, but just kind of more folky and fun. Sitting around in a living room with a group discussing things, and then when we had ritual, it would be in that living room and little altar set up, and it just had a very folk medicine type of feel to it. And it was lovely. But when I got to this temple, upstairs in the witchy shop, holy fuck. It was like you go in there and I get why it was done. There's nothing dark except for that it was black, like dark in the true sense. It was like, at least the effect for me, uh, was it took you out of this reality. You felt like you were not in this world. You were in some place between the worlds. I think that's the purpose, at least it worked for me. You couldn't sometimes almost tell what was up or down. Time distorted massively. Now, I find when I'm doing my soul prints, time distorts. Sometimes it seems like a long time. Sometimes it seems like a couple of seconds. But in this temple, and especially during ceremony, but even when, I'll jump ahead. At some point, I moved in. And I do want to go into, for this episode, before I moved in, and I just visited, and boy, heavenly visits, I must say, upstairs. There's a little kitchenette. We were right across, like right next door, and then there was a corner. And then right opposite was Dr. Cheese and the Cake Lady. Just a little bit towards Spadina. We were almost there. So next to Dr. Cheese and the Cake Lady, which would be opposite us if we were looking out the window onto the road of Harvard Street, there's Dr. Cheese and the Cake Lady. Next door to us, and we had a window there, was, what was his name? He was a mechanic and gas station. Jack. We called him Jack the Mad Horker because every morning we got woken up by. That's how Jack, the little Italian mechanic, woke us up every morning. Something else, I'll tell you. So, anyways, there's Jack, and that was our bedroom window. And I remember when in the summer we had an air conditioner, and we shouldn't have been doing, and we stopped doing it, but we had an extension cord attached to it, and it was wound up, and so it would get all hot and weird and warpy and stuff, so kind of dangerous, and we stopped doing that. So then came out of the bedroom in this little hall, and at the back, which would be the backyard, was the kitchenette, and then the other end of the hall was the temple. And then just over to this side, almost like right opposite the bedroom door, was the stairwell going down. And then there was the shop. And that photo where Raven's standing behind the apothecary with all the herbs and stuff, when you got down the stairs and you faced that way, that's where you saw Raven, if she was there, or the apothecary. And then if you kept walking through that way, so it would be, if you're looking at that photo of Raven, to your left would be the door to outside, which would be Harvard Street. So if you look out there, Dr. Cheese and the Cake Lady, and then to your left towards Spadina was not the exact next door, but a couple of doors, I think it was, Fifth Kingdom Bookstore, which then became the Omega Bookstore, kind of in Yorkville later on. I forgot the guy's name, beard, bald head, really nice guy, very friendly, kind of big guy, and a work business partner who was really skinny, kind of looked Buddhist, shaved, not shaved bald, but very short cropped hair. So they ran the Fifth Kingdom bookstore, and it was always spiritual and esoteric stuff, really cool. And then a couple of doors down from that was Dr. Morgenthaler's abortion clinic, which always had people picketing and everything there. Oh, God, I got to tell you, see, things open up when I'm telling the story. So there was also, we called the French bag lady. And I remember way before I met Raven, I'd see her on Bloor Street a lot. Anyone who's been on Bloor Street way back to the 80s, the French bag lady, she spoke French, some English, like French as in Parisian French. I talked to her a few times because she hung out on Harbor Street a lot. And I try to speak to people on equal basis and give them full respect. And she definitely had some major mental handicaps and things, but at times she was lucid. And anyways, don't want to digress too much. Let's go back to this story. So I'll just give you a few little things that would happen at the witchy shop around that area often. So we'd have the protests at the Morgenthaler Clinic. We had... and we get these Christian protesters, nothing against Christianity, but we'd get these protesters and they'd sometimes drop into our place because they had an issue with our occult mystery store. And I must say, one thing that triggered them was we had a couple of real human skulls in the display case. It was for the atmosphere. And one of them was a child skull. And holy fuck, that got them freaking. They wanted us to repent and all kinds of things. Anyways, we were in our 20s and we were into our whatever. So we had the protesters. We got a wide variety of customers who were really interesting. We had a lot of Freemasons, 33rd degrees and stuff like that, not just the little Shriner kind of Freemasons. We had the French bag lady, and she would come in every so often, and there was a mirror just inside the door on the wall, and then there would be the stairwell going up. And she'd come in muttering something to herself. Vive la France! Oh no, vive la séparation! That's what she would say. And often. And she would come in, look in the mirror, and she'd pull out her lipstick, and she'd start putting lipstick on her ears, like really intently. And we tried to just let her do her thing at times, but it just got to be a little bit too much. And also standing right blocking the door, it stopped customers from coming in. So, we asked her politely if she would go, and she'd leave, but yelling, Vive la Revolution. What else? So roughly opposite Morgenthaler Clinic, around there, on our side of the street, so that's a block or so down, there was Rowers Pub, and we would go there for food and hanging out with friends and things. I don't know if it's still there. Probably not. It's probably another restaurant pub, though. Okay, so anyways. So my story is, and I'll write this down in a slightly different way, different bit of the story. One of the things that really made me fall in love with Raven was, so I'm living in a big rented house that's as cheap as possible because we're students. We're all art students and university students, and interesting too because I just remember, I'll go into this. Holy shit. Because I need to give you the atmosphere of when Raven decided she would visit me. And there's a story behind that as well. And I've got an article of clothing that she gave me then that I still have now, and I can still wear it now. Okay? This is cool. So, some point not too far down the road, I was visiting her. I was staying overnight. It was wonderful. Oh gosh, yes. Summertime. Holy shit. I can feel it. Often we would, in those hot summer nights, we would walk down Spadina to the market. And we love the real authentic Chinese restaurants where they have the plastic tablecloths and they just wrap it up, pull it off, and you're ready for the next one. And the favorite fish, have it in the fridge. I can prove it to you as well. We would go for pickerel. And it's also, I guess, my favorite fish. Well, one of my two favorite fish. My favorite freshwater fish. Okay, so, oh, it's backwards, but I hope you can read back. Pickerel fillet, right? See? Freshwater, lake, whatever. And we would go to our favorite Chinese restaurant. I can't remember the name of it exactly. And me and Raven, warm enough that often I'd have bare feet walking on the ground, just watching out. I didn't step on syringes or something. And we go and have our favorite pickerel. Steamed, some kind of ginger gravy sauce, nothing thickened, so it felt fairly, not questionable about MSG and all that, although it probably did have it in there. So we did that often. It was just beautiful. You can imagine we're head over heels in love, so everything is just angels, choir singing, and things. We go for walks to parks at night and sit in the swing sets and talk and kiss. And we go into subways and we'd be so oblivious to anyone around us that people will come up to us. And now remember, we're dressed up, always dressed up. Another memory, I bought a lot of vintage old clothing and stuff. I was a student, I was creative, and I also didn't have a lot of money. So I had this giant coat that was so cool and so inexpensive, but it was like the size of a friggin' grizzly bear. So I don't know why I bought it. And I realized that later, and I showed Raven, and we're like, hey, it's our twin coat. So we'd walk down the street often. Holy shit. God. Wearing this twin coat together. So I'd have one arm, one sleeve, and she'd have one sleeve. The only thing is, I was tall and she was a lot shorter. So her head would be disappearing into the opening often, and I'd be trying to keep it open enough that she wouldn't disappear, although it kept her warmer. And we just laughed and giggled and things. But for more practical stuff, we were, and except for in the hot summer, shorts and things. But when it was the right temperature, we would dress up to the nines. Raven often would wear this amazing, all black, this amazing black hat. And she had expensive taste in clothing. Holy shit. But a lot of it was vintage as well. So less expensive, but well chosen. And she'd have this black hat with the veil that would come to here, little black veil. Holy shit, she looked hot. Oh, she redefined that kind of look. And people would just, I don't know what they thought, but people would see us, I'm sure, like up against a wall, in the subway station, downstairs, whatever, oblivious to anything else going on, and just glued eyes with each other. And like often we would do things where like we would just feel our energy, like not our imagination, we feel our energy, or we'd often be kissing, or sometimes we would just be letting our lips almost touch and close our eyes or open and just feel this energy. And that, I don't know, to be submerged in that, we were not we were not in reality, and we were kind of in reality. And with the dressing up, we projected personas and different. As my speaker's turning off, we really worked our love energy to its max, and we became, because we were in Wicca, which was very much, at least we were very geared towards self-awareness and learning and realizations. And Raven was my high priestess, and I was an acolyte, so I was learning level 1. I got my first degree initiation from Raven, I got my second degree initiation from Raven, and then I chose not to have the third, other reasons. But anyways, back to my story. Among the Wicca community, among the whole pagan community, we were considered the black occult, whatever. We were always the black sheep of everything, our families. We just were alternative. Now, the reason why I believe people kind of in the occult, in the Wicca community, labeled us dark and evil was not because we were dark and evil by any means. It's because, like we always did, always do, always have, we questioned everything. We never left a stone unturned. And we were fairly intelligent people, very intelligent people, I'll say. And we didn't just take something for what it was. So some people were happy just being kind of the folk witch. We dove in. We read Hermann Hesse's stuff, all the books, and we discussed them in our little group. Gurdjieff, read all of Gurdjieff. We discussed all of that. We partook in plant medicines, plant teachers, let's say, and other not quite directly plant. I'm going to tell the truth. Fuck it. We were 20 years old and we were very smart. I'll just tell you, there's a book, you can look this up, Dr. Andrew Weil. Most people right away know who that is. I think the book was called The Marriage of the Sun and the Moon. You can look this up. There was chapters on different things. One chapter was on the health benefits of the combination of taking the combination of LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide, and MDA. God, I can't say what that one was. But anyways, MDA was what was around for deep legal therapeutic work, psychotherapy with trained professionals. MDMA, or some people call ecstasy, or E, came around after MDA. When MDA got outlawed and banned, they had the Analogs Act, and what they before that was in position, you had MDA, it was banned. People would quickly find a slight chemical shift that would make it not MDA. So MDMA. That was the reason why it came out, so for a while that was legal until they could run around and make it illegal again. But MDMA, which I believe is a little easier to make, and also a little bit more energetic, so it's a little bit speedier, became more popular because, and less psychedelic. MDA had a slight soft psychedelic effect, visuals, little strobe effects, and but when it was holy shit, when it was popular, you go to nightclubs and you could tell someone was on MDA. It was less harsh on the body, you got less of a hangover, and it was deeper, softer, both quite loving, but the MDA took you so deep into yourself. I remember people, and myself, you'd be in a nightclub. I'm thinking of an exact experience, and there was some kind of a big pillar. And I guess I had my hand on the pillar. And then when I noticed, I think my hand was making love to the pillar. Like in a public place, I had no clue. And I was like, holy shit. Fuck. You know, just put my hands in my pocket or something. I remember friends telling me that they were rolling around in gravel because it felt so good on MDA. This is MDA. So anyways, jumping back to Andrew Weil, Dr. Andrew Weil, and The Marriage and the Sun and the Moon, his book, well, definitely like it was in the 80s. So, and he said, you take the combination of these two and it's extremely therapeutic, and it's also good for asthma. So it opens up the lungs and you can really feel and breathe. So I remember at the time, one of the reasons why that's the reason why I brought this up, one of the reasons why we were labeled the Dark Witches. Because yeah, we were controversial. We challenged all beliefs and kind of came to our own conclusions based on our logic. So in ceremony, historically, witches used plant medicines. The Gnostics, Hypatia, who developed the astrolabe, a very real person who was chopped into little pieces by radical Christians at the time. They all used, and you can look this up, plant medicines of all kinds to get their visions, to connect, to get their knowledge. Their knowledge of the stars and the planets came from taking plant teaching medicines. So anyways, we embraced that. That was good enough for us. And we were very careful in choosing what. We didn't want to take belladonna and all these raunchy, horrible things that are in the history books. Like, why would we do that? We want to upgrade and take a much more contemporary, less harsh on the system. So we used LSD in ceremony. So imagine you're in this black temple, and it wasn't a round room. It had a curtain, a black curtain that made it round. Black painted floor with the white pentacle, the altar tools on, black ceiling, blacked out window, and of course incense. And in the wine, I think it was actually sherry, Madeira, yes. MDA was put, and LSD, I think others, I remember now, yeah. Only in very important rituals did we have the MDA put in, and not a massive amount, just a little bit to soften and warm up that tactile and connecting to everything place. But Raven and I secretly, as our little bonding thing, would often take LSD as well. And it was just our little bonding secret. And definitely deepened ceremony, and we would recite these memorized invocations and magical things from the Book of Shadows, and we'd get deeper insights into what we were saying and doing, so on. So I'm trying to keep this all together. It's really, and I'm still morning brain. Had my coffee though, so okay. So this is the setting. This is roughly why we were labeled the Dark Witches, because word got out. We didn't go around telling people. And how do I get it all in? Okay, so someone was getting their first degree initiation, and in our tradition, MDA was put into the chalice, very small amount. Now, after that, I remember, oh my God, I remember now. That same night, we were signing an offer for a house on Westmoreland Avenue near Ossington Station that we lived in for a while, for a bunch of years. And because I remember the real estate agent coming over afterwards. And then after that real estate agent left, Raven said, I've got this little bit of the Madeira left with the MDA in it, and we don't want to leave it too long because it's like a little chemical thing and it'll just go gross. And Raven said, "Do you want to take this?" And I said, "Sure," you know. And I also took, upon Raven's suggestion as well, I took some LSD. Well, don't let me forget, I'm working towards our first visit to my place where all the students live, including Margaret Atwood's nephew. I don't want to say his name because, you know, I'm not entitled. I haven't asked if I can just mention people's names and things. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. Awesome guy. Every so often I still have contact with him, little bits in LinkedIn and things. So, also lead singer of Porcelain Forehead. I went, his name was Mike. Oh, fuck it. Mike, I mean, he was at our home. Nothing, I'm not telling any stories about him. Mike Hillis, and his band name on stage was Sif Hillis, Syphilis. So it was a very punk thing to do, but they were big. They opened for Dead Kennedys and stuff. So anyways, we had a real mixed home group there at my house at 581, I can't remember now. Bloor Street West. So back to, oh God, I gotta just, oh yes. So I've taken, it's kind of not super late. It's probably 8 o'clock or something. And I've taken this sacrament and we're up in the temple and there's Raven's signature incense burning. It was in the, it's like little chunks of resin. I know one of the elements was frankincense with a bunch of other things in it, and it was quite phenomenal. And because it was always used for ceremony, when you had it burning and nothing else, it triggered that mindset right away. So I'm starting to get altered in front of the altar. And long story short, I'll jump ahead. It threw me into an experience that I've never had since, never had before, wished, and I was told by a psychic, one that I mentioned reading the tarot cards, Lizanne, who always did the tarot readings at the shop, that I would have these trances where I would get connected to other worlds and depths and things. And I never did have that experience anymore, but I think I was looking for that exact experience. I think I get it when I'm doing my soul prints in a slightly different way, and my art. So anyways, this experience, I went into a trance-like state, but I was aware of myself and what was, it's just it was coming through me. I wasn't thinking about the words. They were speaking and I was listening to them and just going, whoa. Holy shit, ask me more questions, ask me more, you know, and Raven would ask me questions. Now, I was in this state till about 5 in the morning. And when I started to notice, I was so aware that I would say to Raven, I say, oh, I can't fully trust the information coming through anymore because there's little spaces in between. And so I'm filling them in with what I think makes sense. So my thinking was starting to come back in. And there were things like, I still remember, this world, according to this intelligence or whatever that was coming through me, this world that we're in was a shadow reflection or a shadow world of this more real world that was casting what we're in. And this, so things like because we were using like the 4 elements were part of our ceremony thing, the directions, northwest, east, south. Fire, earth, air, water. And I remember saying, or this voice saying, and me listening to it, that fire, for example, in this world is what we experience, but in the real world of direct light that came from within, not a reflection coming out, and hence our belief that everything is outside, whereas in reality, we are that which we think is outside, and we're getting little bits of it. So no lack of anything. It all comes from us, is how I was seeing it, or receiving it. That's receiving it and therefore seeing it. But for example, fire in the real world was a real intelligence, a real consciousness. And this is part of why the elements became important in our ceremonies, is how I saw it. What else was there? Oh, we did what was called a self-blessing. And it's kind of like, blessed be my feet that walk in thy ways, blessed be my, knees that kneel at the sacred altar, and blessed whatever, right? And so you go through this thing. And I thought that was really beautiful affirmation of our sacredness, like our physicality, our physical vehicle that is with us for a short while, and that we should be appreciative and love it, because it is our friend for a time being. It's a part of us, and that's how it started off my whole way of seeing soul prints, is that I believe we're not separate from our body until our body is gone, but as we are in this form, the body is as much a part of us. It's a manifestation or a projection of our true essence. And hence, by working on the body with my tattoo needle and ink and soul print perspective, we are directly tweaking and accessing in sort of an acupuncture-like way, intuitively, from the perspective of the heart and soul, is how I go at things, that we can directly work with these deeper, higher energies that we are, and access them, and in a sense heal ourselves. So, gosh, it's not a massive amount that I remember. I just remember the bigger parts of these things. But I was definitely in an altered state. Holy shit. One of the things I remember was MDA done in conjunction with LSD. Quite often, some people who do LSD can get overwhelmed and have a bad trip. I found that MDA gave it its heart and soul, and held the LSD experience in a like a loving, feminine, womb-like cradle, and you almost could not have a bad trip unless the MDA faded away and the LSD continued, because LSD lasted for about 12 hours and MDA not quite as much. So you could potentially take maybe too much for what was good for you as that person, LSD, and because of the MDA you could handle it, and then the MDA might fade off, and then you might have a difficult time, especially if you're ignoring your body, which is easy to do, and you're dehydrated or whatever. This would be like at a rave or something, which we didn't do at that time. Way later we did. So that was that experience. I always remember it. Now, jumping to where I finally had Raven come to visit me at my place. Now, it was an artist's home. I think I paid $250 a month for my room. And it was a bit decrepit, like a student's housing kind of unit would be. A lot of art students, because we go to a lot of parties. As art students, there was, in the early 80s, Queen Street West. You could go down there and you could go to one booze can after another, all different shapes and sizes. You'd have like an apartment, basically, that they had a fridge, there was a band playing. When you came in, one of the band members stopped, came over, asked you what you'd like. Well, it's usually one beer option, so they get you a beer, go back and jump in with the band. Wonderful, kind of psychodrama, musical, theatrical kind of band thing is the one I'm remembering. And then there were big booze cans where there were code names. If you wanted to have alcohol, you had to know what that code word was, and there'd be a big doorman at the side, and it was a giant warehouse out near the Clark. and like a live band, the one I specifically remember, which we went to after our wedding at the Scarborough Bluffs Old Beaches, and I'll go into photos of that way later, where we had our hand fasting. And then so after we go to this booze can is the one I'm recalling. And I had my first, maybe only real genuine synesthesia experience. Not where I heard something and it made me see things. It was a direct, like the sound of these two guys wailing on their saxophones at each other, almost right here. I was glued to the wall, and their sound was visual. Most amazing experience I ever had. Anyways, I'm trying not to get lost in this. So many booze cans, absolutely wonderful. A lot of creativity. Oh my God, it was so good. So anyways, coming back. Okay, Harbor Street, Witchy Shop. Raven is coming to my place to spend the night. Oh, I'm excited. I'm also a little intimidated, a little nervous. She's going to meet all my friends. She's going to meet Sif from Porcelain Forehead. She's going to meet Mr. Atwood, Margaret Atwood's nephew. He was like a super brainiac science guy. And I remember one time he had some projects, some papers, which I didn't understand any of it. It wasn't my thing. It was just too technical. And I came back after eating, I went to, I hope I can keep going back and forth here. So me and my friend Rob went to AGO, took a half a mushroom cookie, chocolate cookie with mycelium in it. So it was a little softer in the stomach, and daytime trip, and we went to see Harold Towne's exhibit. Friggin' phenomenal. On mushrooms. So intense and so amazing. Oh my God. That's the way to go to a gallery. So I come back and I'm a little bit back home. This is without Raven. I'm still going to tell that story. So I come back from that gallery show, a little bit still altered, but quite a lot more integrated. And I come into the house and there's Mr. Atwood. I won't say his first name just in case. There's Mr. Hillis. There's Reg and Kathy, a couple that had the bigger room with the waterbed, and I'll go into that story too. Now, at this time, so I walk in, they're sitting in the kitchen all chatting. That's where everyone congregated. So Robert, that's another person, Robert. Okay, so let's go to, I'm just mixing around here. Mr. Atwood is curious about what my headspace is on the mushrooms. So he's like, asked me questions, and he's kind of intrigued because I'm not stoned in the way he might think, being a person who hasn't done drugs yet or ever. I don't know. So he pulls out one of his papers, really technical science journal, and he said, read this. So I pull it out and I start reading it. And to my amazement, it's coming to me as I read it like the most exciting, intriguing adventure story. And I'm like, Robert, holy shit, I understand this shit. And he could tell I understood it because I make comments and stuff on it. And he's like, what the fuck is this thing you're on? Holy shit. So anyways, that's one little thing. Now to give you a little bit more, I'm creating, so when I bring Raven to this place, you'll kind of know what I'm bringing her to. I'm a starving artist. Remember that. We're in the summer, we're going to the food bank. We have a social worker, and we say, we don't have any money, and it's truthful. And it's my tiredness coming back and forth. So this is the setting. We don't have a lot of money. There are a few university students, lots of art students. And we work part-time at a little on the corner near Bloor and Spadina area. It used to be Lickin' Chicken, and you still saw it on the wall. And it was By the Way Cafe, and all of us worked there. And we worked till really late at night, and often we'd come back to a friend's place on the way home, and we'd put little balls of hash on their stove, and we do hot knives until we couldn't get up to get to the stove to do another hot knife. And then we put on, the only thing on TV that early in the morning was 100 Huntley Street. And we just kind of sit there in a stupor and just, or make a silly comment and things. So anyway, that was the art student thing to do. Oh, and we'd also go walk up Avenue Road often, and we hung out at the Hare Krishna temple there. And to the point where all of them knew us. No one batted an eyelash. We'd come in. We helped them out as well. We weren't like freeloaders or anything. We went around and helped ask for donations and things, and we helped clean up and do the garbage and things. And we hung out with Gora Das. There was Bhakti Marg Swami, who was the main guy, and I think he's still there. He would remember me if I walked in right now. We left quite an impression. I think they thought we were going to join as well. And I know Rob was a musician, and Gora Das used to play with Jimi Hendrix back before he was known. And Gora told us he somewhere at his mom's place still at that time in her closet locked away was his electric guitar and stuff. Now Gora was willing to slightly stretch his whatever promises and vows were in the Christian temple under the guise of, well, he could do this because it would be working with us to get us to join, is how I saw it. So we were going to create a fusion of art student punk kind of musicians and Hare Krishna musicians. It didn't quite manifest, but it was in the plans, in the works. Once, oh God, it's hard to keep on track here. So anyways, that was that. So I'm just giving you the picture of what and where and when and who and how. So anyways, this is what Raven's coming to. And I'm going to introduce you to these people in this place. Now, we called it Casablanca. I don't know if it really was the right translation, but it's supposed to mean cockroach castle because I've never seen so many cockroaches in my life. We had a little ghetto blaster, and there were so many cockroaches. They were inside, and the little tuner of the radio part, AM FM dial, there'd be cockroaches inside, and we would change, it would go as we turn the thing, so the little thing, we try and squish the cockroach with it. We got so pushed to the edge with the presence of these cockroaches. We had a white, shallow, old sink in the kitchen, and if you turn on the lights in the nighttime, the sink was black, and then the whole blackness just went up the walls, over everywhere, and just ran away. So it drove us a little bit bonkers, a little bit mad, and one of the things I remember doing, me and my friend Rob, was we decided we would crucify a cockroach on a little popsicle stick cross and leave it up as a warning to the rest of the cockroaches. Yeah. So this is what I brought Raven into. Oh, and also, starving artist, remember? I need to make money any way I can, save money anywhere I can, so I can put my money into my art supplies, hence going to the food bank, because then I had $20 more for buying art supplies to do my art. And lovely fire going here. Flickering away. So to save more money, in the summer I rented out my bedroom and got $250 a month to spend on art supplies. And of course, to, pick a roll with Raven at the Chinese restaurant. She used to send me on a Sunday morning. I get up earlier and she'd be still in bed. And she'd send me off to Greek Town to get Galactoburico. Greek dessert. So amazing. And I was so proud that I learned how to pronounce it properly. And bugatsa and other cool bakery stuff. But anyways, so I'm bringing her to my house. And as I was saying, I'm making $250 or saving $250 a month by renting out my bedroom. Well, I wasn't living permanently at Raven's place. I wasn't doing that. There was a condemned balcony on the place. We weren't allowed to use it because it wasn't safe. So Archibald, the lawyer for the Queen's Counsel, who also rented out the space, he had his office downstairs, African guy, or Afro-Canadian, or I'm not exactly sure. Didn't have a very strong accent, but he was a lawyer kind of guy, right? But he was pleasant to us, but nonetheless kind of a slum landlord, but understandable because we weren't paying a lot of money. Now, this condemned balcony was a covered balcony with all those little windows, most of them broken, tree branches from a tree coming in. The floor was on an angle, sloping away from the place. At first, we were nervous about it, and then over time, we just kind of, it's okay. Well, I lived for free, slept for free on that balcony. I also worked night shifts for a while, and I'll tell you the combination of working night shifts and then trying to sleep in this condemned balcony. I had a plastic sheet over the bed, so when it rained, it came onto my bed, so it would be like a little river stream running across my bed. And then, of course, sleeping in the daytime meant that everyone was up and making noise. Oh, I'd also come back to sleep in the daytime and find out Pandora, the black cat of Reg and Kathy, that was not fixed, not neutered, male cat, would spray on my record albums in my bed. Ugh. But, art students, we put up with a lot. And underneath my balcony, there were 2 glue sniffers. And if you ever know anything about glue sniffing, hopefully not from the perspective of doing it, which I don't and won't, but from the experience of being around in some capacity, those that do. I don't know the headspace, but they would every so often just go, they'd, doing their little baggie, and then they'd go, and this would usually happen when I'm asleep, daytime or middle of the night, depending. I also remember one time, because everyone knew I was mostly staying at Raven's, so I think it was Reggie and Kathy. They had a lady friend of theirs from Ottawa, I think, came to stay, and they said, "Oh, go stay in Damon's bed on the balcony. He doesn't come home. He stays at Raven's place." Well, that night I came home, middle of the night, and I would enter by climbing the tree and climbing in the window. Well, can you imagine this poor girl? Someone's climbing in through the window. Freaked the shit out of her and freaked the shit out of me. I must be honest with you. So there, you've got this setting. The cockroaches, the condemned balcony I'm living on, everything. The plastic sheet, the water running across the bed. So I bring Raven back, and she's got a gift for me. Turns out to be this black suit with brocade. I'm looking at it at the moment, and I'll show it to you. Brocade lapel. And I love brocade, maybe because of that memory, I don't know. But I just love it. And that joins to another story of something I'm creating in my mind at the moment. And I'm having Northbound help me with this, Northbound Leather. But I'm not going to say anything about that for now. But it involves brocade and me designing and making this article of clothing. I used to do a lot of clothing. I used to make it myself. I used to sew it myself. And I've got one example and a photo that will come along in this show, this online thing I'm doing with you guys. The article of clothing is from before I met Raven and during, but it's being worn in the photo later. So I'm still not sure where to show that photo. So I might Now I'm telling you about it, but I'll show it to you in context of, is when the photos from when I was in Whistler later on. We were in Whistler. So anyways, so Raven's coming up to the house to stay overnight, and she's bringing with her a gift for me. And it's this vintage suit, beautiful suit with the brocade. It's all black and with brocade, of course. That's all we wore was black. Very hard to go into a closet or a chest of drawers where everything is black and sort of see what's what. That's the only hard part about it. Anyways, so you go into this door, 451 Bloor Street West, I think it was. Maybe 452, 451. It was on the south side of the street, Bloor and Christie, right over from the Palm Cove Disco, where we'd go and get our little, like there'd be a Jamaican dude with dreadlocks, and he'd just be leaning against the wall, and you hear the music whenever someone come in or out. The door opens. Reggae. And him on, whatever. And we go, yeah. Give him $10, and he just put a little pinch of stuff in her hand, and we're like, oh shit, how do you conceal it? You can't put it in your pocket, so you have to kind of run off. And then there was a Menelon Greek restaurant right there too, where we get 50-cent drafts. That's where we would go and have our beer. And so I bring Raven home, comes in, I introduce her to my friends. I show her my bedroom. I can't believe she put up with the whole idea. She stayed there. This is the depth and courage and determination and audacity of Raven, even back then. I was 21, she was 22 and a half. Year and a half older than me. With a daughter at that time of 4 years old, Destiny. I have the greatest relationship with Destiny now. I have 2 grandsons going to college, university. So, we're in this place. I've introduced Raven to my roommates. I've shown her my bedroom, balcony, condemned balcony. I don't remember her exact expression or anything, but she was accepting of it. That should give you a lot of respect and insight into Raven on a whole other level. Remember, she is coming from a hardworking family, Greek family, who have restaurants and things in the nightclub they had called Ravens. She dressed up like you wouldn't believe. She was very refined and very intelligent. She was teaching us the Wicca that we were learning. And so she's at my place and she brings me this gift. And I still see it in the hallway on the door of my real bedroom that just I happened to, out of habit, hooked the gift because it was on a coat hanger, this suit. I can see it hooked on the kind of old white painted door in the hall. And I'll show it to you now because this is the exact, as I said, the exact same suit that I've had since early 80s. From a gift from Raven. It still fits me. It still has survived in perfect shape. I just wore it. I have it out because I collected a bunch of things because I needed to go into Toronto. I didn't tell anyone. Just want to keep it quiet. I needed to go in to meet with a gallery owner with the possibility, because of the possibility of you having that gallery to do my show that I'm planning. Yes, I'm planning to do a show. October 2023. I'm determined to do this. Somehow I'm going to get a whole body of work, and it's all my experience I've gone through and going through my sort of caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly, my crucible. And crucible, many of you might know, it's this kind of a little pot container that can be heated up without melting, and you put metals in it to be melted, and it glows hot. And I always found that a great metaphor for going through some difficult stuff, but it's melting off impurities and it's changing your form in an alchemical sense and blah, blah, blah. So I'm going into Toronto for a very quick overnight visit. a very wonderful lady friend of mine, Katie, is there to help and receive me and go with me to this gallery with another friend, Mike, to meet this gallery owner, and with this possibility of having that as where I do my show. It's someone else's show, so we're not going to chat about anything when we get there. It's just that I meet him, touch bases, and move on. And Katie had booked a dinner at a nice Greek restaurant initially for 7, and then I had mentioned, oh my God, I got this chance to do this, go and see this gallery, and the owner, and she said, okay, I'm gonna book it for 8:30. Hopefully that works. We'll try and get to the gallery show of this other artist's work. I can't remember their name. For 6-ish, 6:30. I think it ended up being 6:30 because it was hard to find. And hopefully if it becomes the gallery, it won't be so hard to find. I think I was just directionally challenged, not being in Toronto for so long. So I know this is how this suit got dug out of the storage in my shed, metal shed. Still survived, because I'm like, shit, I have been out of the city for so long, I don't have something nice to wear. You know, I got camo work pants and stuff. There's no, big boots. So I ran around everywhere in that shed, and I found bits and pieces, all from my past, all still survived. Pair of brown leather pants that I got somewhere near the Eaton Center. They're like Guess jeans, but they had a special anniversary kind of thing of leather. They fit me, that's why I got them. They're bell bottoms. I love them still. So I wore those as pants when I went to meet this gallery owner with Katie on my arm. I must say we looked really good, and that it was awesome. I had, let me just take you over here. Not gonna throw the coat yet. Jacket. These also from a way back. I bought these over 20 years ago from Brown's shoes or boots or whatever in the Eaton Center. Look at the point. Holy shit. Then these were $600. They were my big expense. I was so nervous. I put down, like $200, I think, and then paid off $100 every so often just so I could have these boots. And then after, this was also a leap from wearing everything black. I tried to kind of break the black thing. And afterwards, I was like, oh shit, maybe I should have got black ones. Because they're, they can go with anything. It's a little more limiting this way, but they are so comfortable, so wonderful. And pulled those out. So I wore those boots, those brown leather pants, and then this shirt and jacket that I had gotten as a gift from Raven when we first got together, and the first night, she gave it to me the first night she stayed at my place. Okay, it is black, so it's kind of hard to see. I just got to see the brocade? That's, for those that don't know, that's brocade. In this case, black on black. I love it. And I want to hand paint, a long leather coat. A little bit matrixy, a little bit this and that, kind of a bit Vampire Lestat. But I want to create that effect on parts of the coat that I designed myself. So that's lasted 38 years, 39 and a half years now. It's a year and a half since Raven passed. So just making sure I didn't chop anything up there. Yeah, so I think that was kind of that thing. So I went into Toronto, met this gallery owner at a show with Katie on my arm. I think we looked fucking amazing. Did a lot for my ego, and just Katie looks amazing as well, and looked amazing on that day, all dressed up as well. Looked fantastic. Went to the Greek restaurant. Had a wonderful time, and blah blah blah. So hopefully, whether that gallery becomes the place or not, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to narrow down a gallery in Toronto to have my show. It's going to be a mind-blowing show, and it's, like I had started to say, it's about my process and Raven, and this is really a precursor to that. This retrospective sort of bookends of the show at the end of the year, of the end of 2023 in October, to kind of align with when I do my pumpkin lantern carving. And I do intend to do at that time another next stage up, lantern carving as well, if I have the time to maybe do it at the show, or I don't know. I've still got a lot of ideas. Can I do it all as one single person at once? I must also mention, I am so blessed. I have so many good friends and so many people helping me, willing to help me, believing in me. I'm speaking to all of you right now. I don't know why, how I deserve all this, but I have learned how to trust and accept and help and to be vulnerable. All the things that I still had a hard time with, even with all the work I did with Raven. And maybe the trauma kind of fortified some of the old habits that weren't so strong, and then during my trauma kind of became a bit of a protective shell for me. And I think that was necessary for that year alone, surviving and now moving into thriving. And all my good friends have helped me along the way. You know the saying, riding on the shoulders of giants, which usually, as far as I understand, means like ancestors and things, people that came before you. But I feel I'm riding on the shoulders of giants. And the giants for me are my friends that believe in me and that help me. And even the other day, you know, I said, well, I trade with becoming a good friend, the guy who does my snow plowing. I trade tattoo time for snow plowing. And I said to him when he was over yesterday for a short session, I said, oh, you know, I'm gonna start getting a little more free time, and I'm gonna be going to the city to earn a bit of money in the winter, in the slow times. And I said, I'm a little bit worried about security of my place while I'm gone. And he said, don't worry, Damon. He said, I got your back. He said, I'll keep up the snow plowing when you're gone. Make sure it's clear so people will see tracks, activity, no things saying, oh, let's go, and there's no one there, we can go and whatever. He said, but I'll also keep communication with me, but I'll also drive in there every so often just to make it be lived in. And, you know, people will know there's activity there. He says, I'll watch your place. Don't worry about it. I got your back. This is what I mean. Every little bit, people are pulling together, not necessarily knowing the bigger picture. You know, he doesn't know about a gallery show or anything. But a wonderful soul, very generous and appreciative of the tattoo. I will post that tattoo when it's done. It's a cover-up of a cover-up of a cover-up. And big. And he knows I'm putting everything into it. And I'm not caring. I haven't been caring whether it's an exact balance of trade. And he knows that. So he made this offer, and it was just so beautiful and wonderful. Like I felt almost like I was going to cry yesterday. And that's an aspect of the beauty of the people out here, you know, the local people and neighbors, and the big heart. Anyways, back to my story. So, fire. Okay, so yeah, so that was the coat, the jacket that, with the brocade. And yes, Raven stayed at least that one time. I don't remember whether she stayed a few times. It might have been that experience. Oh yeah, so she got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and that's what happened. She turned the light of the kitchen because she had to go through the kitchen to get to the bathroom from the balcony. And the black sink scattered, and that freaked the shit out of her. I think that, yeah, it was the first and last time she stayed there. And that was the impetus for me to move in with Raven. And then, as I mentioned, when I had my trance state and visions, where we had eventually, Raven put a deposit I was a starving student. My job was to be the accounting bookkeeper guy, and I would keep track of everything we spent so that we had money for the mortgage. And yeah, so we moved from the witchy shop. We sold the witchy shop. Well, Raven sold the witchy shop with my support. That's why that real estate agent was there. And we moved to Westmoreland Avenue near Ossington Station in Bloor. And okay, so where should I go from here? Shit, man. Okay, showed you all that, told you all that stuff. I'm kind of doing catch up. So I think now, see, I've covered this. I'm not going to write this stuff, and I'll write down that you got to watch this video to get all this information to catch up on the storyline, timeline. So I think now what I'll lead to in visual sense are a few photos from that time period, roughly, of Raven and I together and separate ones, just same thing. So you just get a feel of the many faces of Raven, the many faces of Daemon that started to connect and work together and be together and love together. The sides of Daemon that Raven fell in love with and the sides of Raven that Daemon fell in love with. I gave you a little bit of a story of how we'd be seen, oblivious to anyone around us. We had people ask if we were movie stars or something because of how we looked. And I even had people give us cards and say, oh, please, work for the movies and here, we'd love to have you as an extra for blah, blah, blah. We had no interest. But it was flattering. Is there anything else that I could just conjure up here? So, told you about the twin coat, where our heads would be popping out in one arm each. We did a lot of childlike things that kept us feeling absolutely beautifully young in our hearts. Yes. Right when we first got together, this was before we moved out of Raven's place, she said, this is when we started to really date. So that would have been it's around the time that Raven gave me that jacket that I showed you. Raven said, and that's when I thought to myself, oh, I think she really likes me. She must really like me. I kind of stepped out of denial. She said, and she was standing on the stairs of the witch's shop. I remember that. And she said, my friend Logi, is going on holiday with his girlfriend partner. And he asked if I would house sit. Do you want to, we got a place to stay at for a week. Like a little holiday, honeymoony kind of thing. I'm like, yeah. It was up at Lawrence Station. I remember you get out of the subway and there was a Martinizing place. I remember going, what the fuck's Martinizing? There's some kind of clothing, laundry, I don't know, something. So we went to Logi's place. He had a pool. I remember there was that insulated thing that you have to roll up on the thing. Raven would cook me eggs Benny, that she was so proud she could actually do the hollandaise really well, and mussels in Pernod. Oh, shit. I remember these things. Holy fuck, do I ever remember. I'm not remembering from a long time ago. I'm actually opening up. It's like smelling and then the old factory senses wake up. So I'm actually there as things materialize or not. So they manifest. And so I'm not really remembering way back. So we're at Logi's place for this week. Raven's cooked me all these wonderful things. We have a pool. It's hot, summer. And there's a beautiful little kind of a bit of a park. And there's this big, gnarly maple tree. Magical. And, because I'm leading into this story. So we met a lot of interesting people through the pagan community. One was Marlene Burton. She was a Gnostic reverend of the Gnostic Church of Inner Wisdom. black Afro-American woman, so lovely, so loving, older woman, thick bottleneck glasses, almost blind, probably clinically blind, and she, you'd see her eyes distorted through these big glasses, and that big lady, like a heavy, warm, round, lovely soul. And she'd always go, child. And she loved us. She loved the two of us, and she had all these visions about us. And she forecast everything, all the beauty of our relationship to unfold in the beginning of it. I loved that feeling. She had all, magical. But anyways, child. She taught us what, I don't know if she called it that, I think we renamed it that. We called the twin position. And it was this magical kind of thing she said for us to do often. And we would sit, Raven would put her legs around my waist to be able to sit on my lap, because I wasn't going to do it the other way around. Sit on the ground so that we could go right up close and look into each other's eyes and gaze, and just kind of peripheral gaze. And we did that often. We were supposed to do it often, and we were keeping a journal somewhere. I don't know. Maybe one day I might find it, or maybe it's long gone. I don't know. Oh, boy. So we're Lawrence Station area, staying at Logie's. And then one day we do LSD and MDA combo. And we go to this park, and we sit under the maple tree, and it's pittering rain out, but it's warm enough that we're okay and we don't care. So we sit under the maple tree, and we do the twin position. We go into the twin position, and we're in that altered state, and we in the rain, and we sit under this tree, oblivious to anyone around us. And we look into each other's eyes, and we let our focus dissipate into more of a peripheral, soft gaze, and sit back into ourselves, step back. And before, I don't know how long, we just noticed, and we started describing to each other, like, where are you? What are you? Who are you? And we had a shared hallucination, if you want to call it that, because we were describing it to each other, and we had the exact same experience of each other. We became these little kind of elf-like creatures, not very tall, kind of little goat kind of lower body, and big, like, black eyes, couldn't see pupils or anything, very childlike and playful. And we're describing ourselves to each other, and just going, oh my God, that's what I see too. Holy shit. Like, is this the real us? Is this us in another dimension? Like, what's going on? These are the experiences that I think made our relationship so wonderful and so open. We also had a purpose, just throw this in here. We swore to each other that we would not hold each other back, that we would want to help each other grow into our fullness. So we had a slightly different kind of relationship. Well, we had a very different relationship, but in that sense, we wanted each other to be individuals and to be together. So, oh fuck, where was I going with this? Oh my God. So, I might have been going for something there. I know we did the tree, we did the little beings. Yeah, and we were wondering what and where and who we were. So we encouraged ourselves to explore together, face our fears, overcome them. We did a lot of ceremony and inward work together. We moved through and evolved. We grew out of Wicca as it became limiting to us. And many people just stayed in these things, and we would move through other communities and scenes and grow away from friends at a time and grow back into or not. And I think other people saw us just changing our minds, but we didn't. We just always grew. So, like, for example, a lot of the Gurdjieff and Hermann Hesse kind of work, there was something that started getting us interested in Sufism. And then that got us interested in Islam, because it was like, well, Sufism kind of came out of the body of Islam. And I was like, well, it doesn't make sense. Why does Islam seem like this religion of rules and restrictions? And then Sufism seems so esoteric and transcendental, like Rumi and Hafiz and all these poets. So at some point we dove into that, and we went and did Sufi retreats at Lake O'Hara in Alberta. Things like this. And you'll see a photo in my retrospective sharing with you of me on a mountaintop with these freaking mountains. It looks like it's a back set, fake, but it's real. I'm up on a mountain and there's mountains behind me. That's when we were at a Sufi retreat, for example. So we grow through things, and we evolved, but we always stayed together, Raven and I. We always seemed to magically just kind of be into whatever. Like Raven would say, hey, I just explored this. Do you want to check it out? Share it with you. Oh, that's cool. Or I'd go, hey, Rave, check this out. Anyways, during that time, just going back to the witchy shop before I leave that for good in this, often I would create projects, sculptures. I made a human leg bone, real human leg bone flute, where the little ball joint piece on the femur, I inlaid it with ebony and silver for the little flute pieces, and it could pull apart to clean. And the little ball, I carved and added a little bit of sculpey to it to fill in the little bits. I turned it into a little human skull. Seemed a bit morbid to some people, but I think it was the embracing of the aspect of death that we were trying to learn about and embrace. And I'm glad I did that work, because I think it helped me in future times, present, recent past. Raven had visions. I had visions. We share them with each other. She one time, before she met me, this is cool, to Lizanne, the lady who read the tarot, she told me later that she told Lizanne before she met me, she said, I'm doing this little visionary thing to try and find out who am I going to be meeting that's my proper partner. She said, it's not working, Lizanne. It's not working, because I keep seeing Spock. That is fucking ridiculous. So she kind of just pushed that off. And then later, when she met me, and I'm telling her I used to work at this restaurant in Ottawa before I came to Toronto, while I was earning money while going to grade 13 college, which was an art program just to build up my portfolio to get into OCA. And IP Looney's was the restaurant, and they had this story that Irish Patrick Looney from Ireland, that's funny because I'm Irish too, this is the theme of the restaurant. Everyone dressed up as a character, Little Red Riding Hood. I was Spock. Freaky, yeah? And anyways, just the rest of that story, Irish Patrick Looney came over to Canada in a giant bathtub with all his kids, and he had so many kids that he couldn't remember them by name, so he gave them characters, and that was kind of the whole storyline. And I was Spock, and I had my Spock outfit, and I had little pointed ears I stuck on every day and fucking hurt putting them on. Sometimes they'd fall off, and I had a little space gun, and I could shoot my kids of the guests that were sitting at the tables and stuff, and they loved it. But that Raven thought it was not working, and then when she met me and she heard that story, she's like, holy fuck. We would have visions, we would have dream quests that we would try and connect with each other through dreams. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of everything, not too much, but enough. I don't need to hide everything. So one time I was a virgin at the time, so I was friggin' intimidated by Raven. We decided that we would start our relationship at a certain age. We'd go, okay, we're this age, so at this age, we don't think about sex. I think Raven was just trying to help me not get so intimidated. She's cool. She's okay. That's all right. We don't need to. You just, so we can open to this more comfortably. And so we started, and I think this is also what laid the groundwork for our relationship and why it was so strong. So, we chose a certain age. We go, okay, and we're going to grow. And so hence, I think that's why that little vision under the tree, that experience of these little creatures and stuff, we were very playful and magical. And hence, we created our name, Rowan Child. The Rowan tree, the sacred tree to the Druids, and child, always reminding ourselves that we would keep that child alive inside ourselves. And we had a code name, Magical Child, and that code name we used for that MDA elixir, because it felt like it brought us into that place, loving and open and able to be vulnerable and see the strength in the vulnerability. So I'm going to share this with you guys. So here we go. We went to, it was called Wickham Fest. So I have not had sex with Raven yet. Kissed a lot. And she was with her high priest at the time. This is the very beginning. I'm kind of going back a bit. All the stories I've been telling you have kind of gone past there. So I'm going back a bit to our beginning. And I remember I did half a cookie of mushrooms when I got to Wickham Fest. And the idea Raven suggested was when I'm in my tent with a female partner, and she's in her tent with her high priest, we would secretly try and connect magically. Her having sex with her high priest, who she was having a relationship with, and me having sex with my female friend. And so that was really exciting, and it was magical work. It was an exercise, but keep in mind, I still had not had, I was still a virgin. So I was stepping into this situation in a tent, but with this aim and purpose of, through that sexual act, kind of tantric style, and I had been instructed on what to do and stuff, that Raven and I would try and connect. It was pretty wild. Anyways, I won't go into any detail, except that I would say definitely we had an experience and achieved certain results, and that was pretty cool, and it tied in with all of our little magical work together and dream quests and visions and things. Around that later bit, but around that time as well, Raven had, I can't remember the details of that vision, but I remember she had kind of like a liquid mirror type of thing that she walked through into another world. There was something about that. But she had this vision that I said to her, I'm going to be leaving you one day. And she had that with her for a long time, until when she knew she was really ill. And she said, oh, it's so weird, because I always thought you were going to leave me and I'm leaving you. And it made me think, what if it's kind of a reality illusion that we're going through, that my experience is that she has died physically and I'm in this world where she's not physically a part of it. But what if there's some kind of illusion to that? This is what I thought based on her vision. I thought, what if she's still right? And for that year, I must say, part of the real difficult aspect of my grieving and my isolation, and why I didn't answer people much, well, I was overwhelmed, but I felt like the world had just become a husk. Without Raven in it, everything I experienced was this world where it's just like Raven's not part of it. So it it just became a paper doll veneer. And it was really difficult to take part in a paper thin false reality as I experienced it. It wasn't just experiencing Raven gone. It's like the whole world, the whole reality around me was void of substance. It's like as Raven left, the substance of the world that had developed in who I was and who I identified as was just gone. It's just drained. Very weird experience. And it was only recently that I found it was a moment of an experience I had that just literally, like sparkle of angel dust or something, just, I mean, not just fully woken up, but it just woke me out of that trance or that lockdown that was within me. And I just realized it's time. I'm still grieving, but I just realized it's time to reintegrate, to reconnect, to find ways to release myself from the self-imposed quarantine that I was in. And I don't know, a day or two after that awakening and realization, I went to my chicken coop, and my chickens have been around and not attacked and not anything for 20-something years. We're traveling from Fergus to over here to here. And I open the door in the morning like I always do to the chickens, and there's a massacre. And half the chickens are dead all over the place, blood everywhere, and their throats are, one's head was gone, and it was kind of traumatic, as you can imagine. But once the sort of the shock left me, the next day, the other half were gone, minus there. I think there were 3 chickens and a rooster left, and my good friend Dawn was wonderful enough to take them. But I realized it's a message from the universe as part of me waking up that I need to let go of some things that are holding me here so that I can reintegrate with my people and my purpose. And that's where this gallery show started to manifest, and then the desire to do it. And then I set my sight, and then I had all this stuff between me and that achievement, all these fears, all these blocks and definitions of myself that were very limiting. But I was so determined that I just said to myself, fuck it, I'm going to clear every obstacle in my path as it comes. And it's interesting too, because I met this wonderful Buddhist lady and her husband. And I've had this Buddha statue. I think you guys have seen it before. But since we were in Toronto, so over 20 years. And it kind of just appeared and fell into my lap in a way. Found it at an antique shop in the window and just went, oh my God, I have to have that. And it's the most beautiful thing. And an old friend of mine who worked at the ROM, now is in another museum in Philadelphia, I think, and worked for Discovery Channel. He brought his friend over who was an expert in these areas, and his friend looked at it and he said, that's not a tourist statue. He said, this was made for a temple. He says, I don't know what the situation was, how it found its way here, but he says, that's a really special item. He said, most likely, for sure, it was blessed. And I just found out recently from this wonderful lady, Sally, who's Buddhist, she said, I thought it was a Tara. And she said, no, it's not a Tara. She said, that's a Vajrasattva. And one of the things, I looked it up, the meaning is remover of obstacles. And I'm like, holy shit. Is that not appropriate and fitting for my situation, especially now? Because that's exactly what I'm focusing on, is removing obstacles in my path, because I just know in my heart I have something I need to do, I need to achieve, a lot of things I need to clear out of my system that are blocking me, and therefore I think altering how I see, like an eclipse initially, and now more like a filter that I need to as I clear it, becomes clearer and clearer, my real way of seeing the world as I come out of my shell. And hence these symbols, the crucible, the chrysalis, the phoenix, the butterfly. They're all stages that I have visited, will visit, back and forth, but mostly clear. I feel now I'm kind of, the story about the caterpillar, this is true. They've more recently found this out, still quite a while back, that the caterpillar, which we all know in the chrysalis, dies to the butterfly. But at that stage where the imaginal cells of the butterfly are consuming the caterpillar as food, as fuel, the caterpillar isn't aware of this and goes through a very real death struggle as it's being consumed, as the imaginal cells are developing into the butterfly. And I feel like I identify with that. At times I've been there. And I use the metaphor of, am I seeing things like from lack or of opportunity and being blessed or cursed? It's, am I seeing things from the perspective of the caterpillar being eaten and freaking out? I think of it in the world too. Are we in a stage with all this stuff going on? And it seems like, the end of the world is imminent or something at moments. Is that seen through the consciousness of the caterpillar freaking out that it's being eaten by the butterfly? And are we in that state? Are we just not aware of that possible truth of a metamorphosis of sorts, or what I sometimes like to call the metaphorophysis? If it might not be in exact actuality, or maybe. And I have moments where I feel like I'm in lack and I'm in fear and all this, and I think that's from the eyes of the consciousness of the caterpillar. And then I have other moments where I feel free and hopeful, and that's what I'm working on tuning into and clearing the other consciousness of the grit that's in the way, so that I can see through the eyes and the consciousness of the butterfly of what I am being called to do among many. I think many are being called to do, and I think many are stuck and will never get out of the caterpillar consciousness. And then there are many that are fully possibly in the butterfly consciousness, and then there are some that are pivoting back and forth. And then from that perspective, I think from the consciousness of the caterpillar, for me, I see that what happened in Raven physically dying, and she saw this. She was in the consciousness of the butterfly for sure. She knew she had to go and work from the other side. I kind of fluttered back and forth in that trauma of that experience and saw lack, and then I would remember and see it as a gift. But I do think that our souls chose this to happen, knew that it would be extremely heart-wrenching to our physical identities, and the trauma involved, especially after what you're seeing of our life. And that's what got sucked out, taken away from the caterpillar perspective. But then from the butterfly perspective, it's magical and it's a gift. And even the chickens, at first, once I got over the trauma, which would be the caterpillar perspective, then I realized, oh my God, this is a gift. I get the message. I get it. I'm waking up. And then I feel that possibly, all my friends that are helping me with what I need to do, I think that a lot of you are, yes, obviously you're doing it out of love and compassion for what I've been through, but I believe there's something more. And I like to believe that somehow we are all connecting to something in us that's bigger than our individual selves. And that's what I consider healing. And feeling a calling, a draw to help me with this project and achieve this show. as it physically manifests. And part of the show that I intend, and what I need to do is get out of my own way as well and allow this to happen. If I can create these pieces of art without the little finite me getting in the way, the ego, and I just let it happen, let these things manifest in the way that I know how to do with my soul prints. I do it perfectly. Now I just need to apply that wisdom to my life and my creating of, or the higher part of me, the butterfly me, creating this show. And if I believe if I do it right, and as everyone else is helping me, we all do it right. What right means, you know, this certain kind of right, getting out of our own way. I think we're doing it from a connection. Something bigger is coming through us. And I really believe this. And if I can achieve this, if we can achieve this, and me with all the support of you giants, and you are giants, maybe some of you aren't aware of it, some of you are, we're all giants to our small perception, limited perception of ourselves. And I think this process, I like to believe, and the healing aspect is that we will get more and more in touch with who and what we truly are. And my ultimate goal is, if it can work and I get out of my own way, that this show, and I'm going to ask people to leave their adult critic at the door, and they go in, and it's going to be a magical process from the perspective of the child. And we need to be vulnerable to go through this for it to fully work. I'm designing it, or the higher part of me, if I can get out of my own way, is setting this show up so that it will have a healing element to it for anyone going through that doesn't have their guard up. It is my truth, my honesty and experience. I hear little beeps. I think it might be the guy delivering the gravel soon. But anyways, and finish this up and then pass this on. This is already an hour and a half. So I want this show to have this effect on people that are able to go in with the consciousness and awareness of the child, of the magical child within. And I believe that if I can face all my fears and clear that out of the way and accept help and allow myself and see the strength in the vulnerability that I allow, that this will come together and that this will do what it needs to do. And in turn, draw us closer together as a community and wake us more up in the true sense of like waking to our deeper, more infinite self within us. And I have to just not have to let even let go of the goal, because that's a infinite self goal too, and that's limiting. So I hear noise, so that's the end of this thing. I can hear my guy who's going to be dropping some gravel onto my little driveway here so that it's not mud in the spring. But anyway, so that's my show. That's my aim. And I have lots of people offering to help me out, and anyone that wants to help it, even just by coming to my show at the end of October 2023, that would be the greatest support that you could ever offer me. So I'm looking forward to that and getting together, coming together for that show. And otherwise, blessings. Can you hear the sounds? It's like an earthquake. Blessings, friends. Thank you for listening. And I will for sure put some wonderful photos up with a few little captions and ask you to please watch this, because this is where all the meat is. Okay, love you guys. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon.